Yeah, and thanks everybody for joining. My name is, I do this quickly because we have little time. My name is Antje Joel. I'm a doctoral researcher at the University of Central Lancashire, studentship holder for my own project. I have a master's in understanding domestic violence and sexual assault from the University of Worcester. And I'm an associate lecturer in violence prevention, trauma, and criminology at Worcester, and an associate lecturer in criminology and criminal justice at the De Montfort University in Leicester. I have also been working in the media for 30 years, so I have, hang on, I have to see my screens properly. Thank you. So I've worked in the media for 30 years. So I have developed a kind of natural interest in narrative stories and the effect they have on us as individuals and as a society. So let me first put a disclaimer here what this is not about. This is not about relativism. So if you hear me saying, I like my tea without sugar and you prefer your sweet, and I'm in favor of women being equals, and you believe that we all fare better when we stick to the old tried and tested gender rules, so let's agree to disagree, then this is not actually what I'm saying. Parts of this may resonate with you. Other parts you might find annoying. They might make your hair stand up. But the aim here is not to achieve consensus. The aim is to stimulate reflection. And I'm still thinking and learning about this myself. And I invite you to accompany me on part of the journey here. So let's start with a question. If I could flip a coin, and I would give you the option if you would rather be a virtuous person who's taken for a cheat and fraudster by everyone, or you can be a cheat and fraudster, but you are taken for a virtuous, righteous person by everyone. Which would you choose? You're welcome to put that into the chat, either 1 or 2. So 1 is the first option, 2 the second, naturally. And I cannot really see the chat. So Nora can probably help me here and tell me if there's answers coming in the chat. I can see numbers, 24. Is there a way I can see this? Nora?
I will tell you, but I think you should also be able to see the chat.
No, nope, it doesn't show me the chat.
Most people would choose the first option.
Most people choose the first option. Yeah. It's great. This was a question Glaucon, who was the brother of Plato. He pondered about this, and he suspected that most people would opt for the second choice, actually. And contemporary studies suggest that he was just right. So maybe if we say we would rather be a virtuous person who is taken for a cheat and fraudster, we look after our reputation there as well, because this is what we do. Our reputation means a lot to us. Studies show that appearance is far more important to us than reality. And Jonathan Haidt, who is a moral psychologist, says, we are all such excellent hypocrites, we even fool ourselves. And historically, this actually makes sense, because being accepted into a group, being an acceptable personality, helped us survive. And I would like to look with you at how this relates to domestic violence and sexual assault policy, and how we are dealing with them as a society. So 50 years of vigorous campaigning and research, and where are we now? Little has changed, I would say, I suggest. Victim numbers are persistently high and rising. I put later, show you slides where the numbers are referenced. So this is not, I don't pull this out of my hat. While conviction rates remain low or are decreasing. So it must change. And looking at narratives, I feel most importantly that the narratives haven't changed. We still talk about women having to stop men from abusing them, instead of about men having to stop abusing women. And we do so even as experts in the field. So if we want to look at mythos, mythos, the definition of mythos is that's a cultural narrative. It's the collective stories that we tell each other, and importantly, ourselves, the hypocrites that even fool themselves, and that we live by. I would invite you to look at society as not a collection of individuals, but as a superorganism with a life and intentions of its own. Usually when we look at society, we look at it as a collection of individuals. And every social order, Durkheim suggested, French sociologist, has as its core something sacred. What are the sacred things that you can think of that are the core of our society? Just welcome to turn your microphones on and say it or write it in the chat, which I cannot see. And yeah, especially sacred things in our society that have an impact on our beliefs regarding domestic violence and sexual assault.
Mary said reproduction.
Like motherhood. Is that what you mean, Marie? Yeah.
Yes, she said yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Motherhood is such a sacred, such a thing that we hold dear, that is kind of holy to us. Family, I would suggest, is such a thing. And
we also have not harming others from Rebecca.
Yeah, that's it's a moral ethic. You don't harm others, that you care for others. It's one of our moral ethic foundations, the Care Harm Foundation.
There's also
and Miha says social justice.
Yeah, there's something that we hold sacred. Or is this something we strive for, or is it something we hold sacred? Let's
both
discuss that, So each of our societal narratives is designed to orientate us morally, to draw our attention to a set of virtues and vices, to make clear which is good and which is evil. And it offers lessons to us, what we must do to protect or recover or attain this sacred core of that vision.
With one more example from Mary, to strive for equality.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. This is this depends on equality, and we speak about it a little later. It has much to do with our political views, actually, which moral ethics we hold dearest. I've collected a few examples here how the narrative, I said before that I feel that the narrative hasn't even changed, in the field. People working with perpetrators or with women who have experienced domestic violence and abuse. These are statements from partly shelter workers, and one is a headline from a German national newspaper, and one is from a talk show host. And the talk show host, I might add, I don't know if it's necessary, she is lesbian and defines as a feminist. So maybe just to keep that in mind. I go with her first. So in a talk show about domestic violence, she introduced her guest victim with the sentence, "You are such an attractive woman. Why did you let them do that to you?" And the shelter worker said in this year, it was on a workshop from WWPN. And this was a discussion about that women who are in the shelter and who contact their abusive partners from the shelter, they are There's a policy, obviously, I don't know if in all shelters, it was a German shelter, you know, but in some shelters obviously, that the women are kicked out, you know, and this is to guard the safety, to guarantee the safety of the other women, because there's a fear that they would give away the location of the shelter, which needs to be kept secret to keep the women safe. And when I challenged this practice, the shelter worker said, yeah, well, these women are obviously not able to keep themselves safe. A headline in the Tagesspiegel said there, and this was just recently, we have to celebrate every woman that makes it out of the cycle of violence. And another statement from a shelter worker was, well, that was on a panel discussion, you know, by the Ministry of Justice about domestic violence. Well, if she goes back for the third time, you do start feeling sorry for her kids. I would just like you to let this sink in for a moment, you know, and what the messages are behind these statements, what we are actually saying that is not being said. I don't know if we don't have that much time, you know, for discussion, but if anybody wants to say anything, you're welcome.
I mean, it's basically victim blaming, and yeah, the women are responsible themselves for the violence, basically.
Yeah, I would agree there.
There doesn't seem to be any insight or empathy.
Is it empathy, or is it, you know, I wonder if it's just the angle from which we are so used to look at these things. You know, even the celebratory thing here, where we think I will not attempt to say this word again. We have to celebrate every woman that makes it out of the cycle of violence. You know, it sounds so positive, and it's probably meant so positive. But I wonder, you know, what we are saying here is that it's something that you have to achieve as the woman, to make it out, right? Yeah. And what about the women who don't make it out? What do we do with them?
Yeah, and then he also said in the chat that it could be also considered as compassion fatigue.
Is it? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's all worth considering. But I found, you know, is that it comes actually from people who you would think, and I would be pretty sure, you know, that the person who said this, you know, that they are not aware of what they are saying. What this hidden message is, right? For example, you know, the practice of keeping women's shelters secret. I understand this from a practical point of view, but I also ask myself, you know, what message do we give? What message do we give to victims? What message do we give to perpetrators and to society? That the women are hauled away, often, you know, to faraway places, kept, you know, secret, while the perpetrators roam free. It's, you know, just to stimulate thought here. When we look at rape and domestic violence myths, they are generally false but widely and persistent held beliefs. One of these is women lie about rape and abuse. Women ask for it. So, you know, victim blaming again. Rape is a deviant event is another myth, where actually rape is a quite common event. And again, I invite you to see these not as a collection of individual beliefs, but as the collective belief of the superorganism that is society. And do these beliefs serve the superorganism's intentions? We can look at, and it's not working, but now it is, and as the prevalence of rape, sexual assault, domestic violence, and the prevalence of the myth around them. So you're probably all aware of the numbers. 20% of women, 4% of men will experience sexual violence in their lifetime. This is, a number that really even shocked me. 85% of women and 12,000 men experience rape, attempted rape, or sexual assault in England and Wales every year. That amounts to 11 sexual offenses every hour. 11 every hour. I think that is, really horrendous. And yet that women lie about rape has been broadly accepted as a fact. For example, studies have found that tweets that contain accusations of women lying about rape, they are found to be almost 3 times as prevalent on social media as messages that validate victims. And I think that this narrative, it does something to us. It contributes to our negative social conception of women, of the social construction. In particular, those women who come forward, who dare to come forward with accusations of rape or sexual harassment or domestic violence. So as a society, as the superorganism society, we have come to an agreement that women are liars, untrustworthy, treacherous, etc. And worth noting is that the higher women climb in status, the more untrustworthy we believe them to be. And I would ask you now to have a guess how many % of rape allegations you think are false, according to the most recent and vigorous studies. And what you think, how many domestic abuse violence allegations made by women, solely made by women against men, are false, according to recent police statistics. You can put this in the chat again, which I'm blind to. If you just put the first number, your guess about the percentage of rape allegations that are false, and then, backslash the second number.
Mm-hmm. Mostly 2 and 3% of people are saying. Mostly 2, yeah. Between 1 and 3. 3 and 5%, 0.5%. 60%. 60, yeah. This is
that's domestic violence or rape, or?
It doesn't say, but the others said 5, 3%, less than 3%.
Yeah. Shall we look at the numbers? Let's look at the numbers. So the most recent study places the figure of false rape allegations at a mere 3%. So many of you were not far off there. And let's just look at the number here of domestic violence offenses that have been reported by women alone between 2018 and 2021. They were 276,834. And of these, 39 have been flagged as false. This is by the Metropolitan Police's statistic. And yeah, somebody said 60%, and you're not alone there with that number or with that guess. A recent post on LinkedIn by a self-proclaimed professional, I don't know what they work as, claimed that 79% of domestic violence allegations are false. And the thing is that you can throw numbers and statistics, data at people, and what you often get is reactance. That is when I tell you something, but this is, these are the numbers, and your beliefs are not justified in such high numbers, thinking that 79 or 60% of allegations are false. And what you get then is what we call reactance. That is, you say, but I want to believe what I believe anyway. And I feel that this might be one of the reasons why anti-bias training isn't really very successful. It's been shown often to make matters worse, because people think, oh, bias, that's so prevalent, so I'm not alone with that. I'm fine. Yeah, the numbers again, and it's statistics, and there are other stories too that we can take from other stories that run through our society, or, you know, that society tells itself as the superorganism that it is, or that as it can be seen. Revelations from the Reykjavik Index, for example, you know, the Reykjavik Index, it measures how people see women in leadership roles, if they see them fit for leadership roles. And so the index registers not only an absence of progress in social attitudes towards women in leadership roles or equality for men and women, but also that young men are significantly less progressive than older men. So we are seemingly regressing instead of progressing. And again, I would ask you to look at declaring women unfit for leadership. This is a surefire way to keep them out of leadership positions, because we know from studies too that when women perceive that there will be bias against them, you know, they don't even bother to apply. And if you add misinformation to the mix, then, you know, then it becomes even more devastating. Political knowledge, you know, this is the foundation of democracy. And it seems that people know very little, you know, about politics, factual. And additionally, we live under a deluge of misinformation that has come to plague political systems, and that are exceedingly difficult to correct. If you remember, for example, you know, the high temperatures in summer, when then you had even news outlets, you know, reporting that, but these numbers, you know, that they were the highest temperatures ever. That's not really true, but the temperatures, because the temperatures were measured near the ground, and so that's not representative. Or then you had Robert Kennedy claiming that COVID was developed in labs and released to harm Black people, because it allegedly leaves Jewish people largely unharmed. You know, it was an attack by Jewish people on Black people. And Robert Kennedy, I only recently found him, you know, there was a book by doctors, or there is a book by doctors that is obviously or apparently a bestseller on Amazon, you know, doubting that COVID really existed. And Robert Kennedy was quoted on it. So this misinformation, or it consistently distorts our views about some of the most consequential issues in politics, in science, and in medicine. And we find that women are subjected to much more negative press coverage than men, including fake news. And this spreads stereotypes and biases against women. Terms associated with fake news stories that denigrated Clinton in the run-up, you know, in the presidential campaign between Trump and Clinton, and that portrayed her as weak or predatory, they were found to be much more in evidence than terms that associated with Trump's actual scandal. It was alleged that Clinton ran a child abuse circle from the basement of a pizza restaurant. And people found that more believable than Trump's actual scandal, which he confessed to, which was later became known as Pussygate. So there is more backlash against women for violating gender norms, seemingly, for violating gender norms that have excluded them from positions of power, then there is backlash against men who act appallingly, and but confirming to gender norms of male entitlement and sexual dominance.
So just someone also put it in the chat, Amber Heard and Johnny Depp's trial, an example.
Yeah, that's just another example, right? Yeah, thank you. So, you know, we can make anything be true. You can Google confirm any of your beliefs via Google. The study comes out that ultra-processed food is dangerous for you. Following week, we had the news that no, it isn't. And then you find that 3 of the 5 scientists that claimed that it is actually very healthy for you work for these corporates like Nestle, or were funded by them. Or there were studies claiming that women are just as violent as men, and that men are just as often victims of domestic violence. And one of these studies was funded by the church. So, but why do these stories fester? Why do we find them believable? Why do we fall for these fake news? And I would invite you to a task here, if we can split into 2 groups. And the first group, I would ask you, if you ever had a conversation with someone, you felt that they just didn't get the point, but you tried to convince them. How did that feel to you? And how did the conversation end? And what do you feel made your conversation a success, either a success or a failure? That's for the first group. And the second group, I don't know how many we have. We have 40. So what did we say? We said 5.
Yeah, maybe we could divide the participants in 6 groups, and group 1, 2, 3 will go with the first question, and group 4, 5, 6 will go with the second question. I will put now both questions in the common chat. Please copy, but I will also add it to the breakout rooms.
Yeah. So the second question is if you have ever fallen for fake facts yourself, can you possibly think of what made you receptive to them? What were you feeling when you first realized that you had fallen for falsity? What was your reaction? Yeah, that's what I would invite you, to discuss amongst yourselves in groups. And Nora, you do that?
And I open now, so please join the groups.
Yeah. Thank you.
You should see now.
I cannot see anything. All I can see is my slides.
Mhm.
I'm talking against the screen instead of against the wall. Are you still there?
Yes.
Yes.
Participants.
So you have sent everyone into breakout rooms now?
Yes, there are 2 people who didn't join. I think they need to accept them. So even if we move them, they need to accept to join the. Yelena, are you here?
Jason, Lika, Yelena, Benson, can you enter the group, please?
Hi guys, can you post the question in our group 4 chat?
Or, yeah.
Yes.
And can you put me back into group 4 if that's okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think you can rejoin.
Yeah, that's difficult because they cannot read the question in the breakout room, right?
Yeah. Nora, are you doing that?
I'm trying, yes. But I also wanted to. How can I enter? Or should I assign myself, no?
Yeah, I think you have to go in. Do you? Then
Yeah.
put it in.
Maybe can we split? Like you put the questions in Dimitra in the first, second, and third group, and I will put it in the fourth, fifth, and sixth.
What did we say? 10 minutes?
Maybe,
Did
Mary, I just sent you.
anything?
Mary, I sent you now the questions, and I think you should still see the join. Yeah. You should still see the join option for the room on the top somewhere. And I directly sent you the questions.
I put the questions in number 6 and 5.
Okay.
I'm continuing, right?
Yes, please, because now I cannot enter in the room.
I don't see the join option.
Hmm.
Can we do it amongst ourselves?
Into number 4, if that's okay.
Yes, yes. Now I just didn't have the option for that.
Oh, brilliant.
So
Thank
now
you.
I have to reassign you. Okay.
And I should be able to read that in my chat when I go in there then, yes?
I'm sorry?
You have posted it in that chat also in room 4?
I sent you directly as well, but I think Dimitra sent it to the group.
Yes.
Okay.
Yelena, are you here with us? Yeah. Thank you, Dimitra, because here I cannot see my
I'm not
screen.
sure why we cannot put the questions in the chat in the breakout rooms. I mean, this is weird.
Yeah.
Can I possibly copy my slides? I cannot.
Yeah, we copied it beforehand.
Oh, okay. But it doesn't work, or?
I put it in the common chat also before they went to the.
Could you see the messages in the chat?
Are you
Now
asking me, Dimitra?
Now it's, yeah,
I cannot. No. If I click on chat, it doesn't show me the chat.
okay.
Only because
But
I'm in
now my
a
chat is empty because I went to the breakout rooms and I came back. Now it's empty.
Okay.
However,
Shall I admit Astrid, which I just
I
did?
did.
yes, Yelena. Okay.
And the remaining time that it gives me here on the screen, that's for the breakout rooms, right? 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes roughly. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, but they will also see in the top, like before 1 minute before the end. They will see that they have only 1 minute left. They will get to receive a message.
So is it 1 minute left?
For me, it's 2 minutes. It says 1 minute 58.
Okay.
Yeah, I've just said that they will receive a message in the group when it's only 1 minute left.
Oh, okay. It's a pity that I cannot see the chat, so I cannot really react, what people put in the chat.
Yeah, but we will tell always if there's something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I create the breakout rooms, that I didn't have the option to join any of the groups, or I could, yeah. I'll simply click. But thank you, Dimitra.
You're very welcome. Am I? Yes, I'm co-host, right? Yes, okay.
Yes.
It's a little bit weird that we can't send messages into the breakout rooms.
But I think that was, in previous workshops that I did with you as a participant, that was a problem there too.
Like you need to join it.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
Okay.
I just have to look like what, the time frame that you gave me for.
I think we are good now, and there's 20 seconds left, and they will come back.
On which slide are we? 17.
But we have like more than 45 minutes, like 50 minutes in total.
Oh, I can see the rooms now.
1 minute and they will come back. Yes.
And then we assign a speaker for each group, or how do we do it? Disappeared.
Now everyone should be back. Okay.
It was a nice discussion, actually. Thank you for the questions.
Really? Was it? Oh, that's great. I was a bit afraid.
Maybe if you want to share anything, what you discussed.
Please do share.
So actually, we discussed in our group falling for fake facts, or how did we feel, and what is our reaction. It is really bad. I myself, like when I face such a situation, I feel that I'm still naive and not wise enough to believe things in spite of my experience at work and in life. And this taught me, as I was discussing with the group, is that to question myself, do I want to believe this or not? Like any information, in order not to be misinformed or misguided. And that learned me through my life experience, like to question and to doubt every fact, like, because doubt will lead me to certainty, and to search for the information source, for evidence, for proof. You know that social media is like widespread, a lot of news, a lot of statements, and this gives me a feeling that I always need, my reaction is that I always need to search, to train myself, to think, to doubt, to question, till I am objectively convinced, is it a fact or not? I don't know if any one of the group would like to add anything on this, please.
I'll chip in, and I would echo what fascinating questions, and it really got us thinking in our group. And I would add to my my co-group member there, we were talking about trusted sources and our own perspectives, our subjective and objectivity, and who we feel more comfortable believing, who we don't necessarily trust in terms of Western media, how it represents all of us as individuals, and looking at where the agenda is. Everything seems to come with an agenda. And yeah, it was a really interesting set of questions. I think we could have talked about that in a larger group all day. Thank you for setting those.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for your input. Yes, you're not alone there if you feel like you're receptive to certain news because it's what you believe anyway, or it fits within your moral values, or it fits within your view of the world. You know, we are all pretty much the same there, that we look for things that confirm what we believe, you know, and we look for people who think alike. We just love people who are just like us. And we find it difficult to discuss with people who are not like us, or seemingly not like us. For example, I can give an example. I have friends in Idaho where I used to work on a ranch 20 years ago, and they're Trump voters. And my kids who are in their 30s, they say, how on earth can you be friends with them? You know, but, and I find it difficult at times. So I find it difficult to hear their point of view, because it makes my hair stand up. But then, and we will get back to that later, I try to feel where they are coming from. Why do they believe why do they believe the things that they believe? Why do they vote Trump, of all people? How could they? It was a funny thing, you know, when I first met one of these guys, he picked me up from the airport, old guy, you know, he was in Vietnam, he was a helicopter pilot. He loves to vote for Trump because he loves Trump because he thinks, you know, he says terrible things that nobody else dares to say. And that brings him joy. And anyway, he asked me, you know, we didn't know each other then, are you a Democrat or are you a Republican? And I said, well, does it matter? I said, so you're a Democrat then. And I still have to laugh about that, thinking back, you know. Yeah, looking at, you know, these narratives, these stories that we tell ourselves, what effect they actually have on policy and justice. There was a study that came out only beginning of this year, and it did shock me. It found that over half of police officers, I think it was 57%, maybe only 53%, over half of police officers in England deal RASO cases, which are rape and serious sexual assault cases. So these are specialist officers, they had specialist training. And over half of these officers believe that women lie about rape and or that women ask for it. And similar to the Reykjavik index, it was found that the younger the officers, the higher the rape myth acceptance among them. And there's a similar pattern of implicit beliefs regarding victims of domestic violence, that these are false allegations. And I asked one of the officers, where does this come from? Where does this belief come from? And he said, well, this must be from experience. But knowing the numbers now, 3% of rape allegations are false. And actually, the numbers in domestic violence, it amounts to 0.01% of false allegations. And this is important because we know that this belief, it can also lead to victims behaving in ways that we then perceive to be indicative of lying. And this is especially the case for marginalized groups or marginalized individuals. They start behaving funnily. And what effect might that have on perpetrators when they feel that we are leaning into the direction, that we do not believe the women, that we are already mistrusting them? And this is not about the presumption of innocence. This is not about believing women over men. I feel there's a significant difference in believing everything a woman says and categorically declaring her untrustworthy. And I would suggest that the latter is to the advantage of the alleged perpetrator. And what effect does this narrative have on attrition rates? So we have higher reporting of rape cases, but the conviction rates, they remain among the lowest since records began. 1,500 suspects in cases where rape had been alleged were convicted of rape or another crime from 2019 to 2020. That's half the number of 3 years ago. Less than 1 in 100 reported rapes ends in a conviction. And this has led to the suggestion by the Center for Women's Justice that rape has effectively been decriminalized. So what is happening here? If we come back to reputation, that we feel that reputation is more important than reality to us. And I've often heard, this, people say that perpetrators and the perpetrator programs, they don't really change. They have just learned, or not all of them, of course, but that many of them have just learned to make the right noises. And I challenge you to think about, if we as a society, as this super organism, have we just learned to make the right noises too? When we speak about domestic violence, when we speak about rape. We have learned, for example, that openly holding prejudiced beliefs, this is no longer acceptable. We all know this. But does that necessarily mean that we have actually changed our views? When you look at racism, studies suggest that people, they suppress their racist views when they're in public or in company of strangers where they don't know, what their beliefs are, the beliefs of the strangers. But when they are in company of people that they trust, that they know, or that are white, they comment just as racist as ever. And can similarly be observed regarding misogynist framing. Now, I was initially looking at bias, this workshop was run under bias first, but I found that the problem is much deeper. To me, it looks as though it's much deeper. And that's why I've come to think about, is it actually bias or is it morals that lead us to believe these things? bias is explained as a flaw in our thinking. So it already comes from a perception that there's something faulty, something's not right. But morals, and I read you the description of Jonathan Haidt here. Morals are interlocking sets of values, virtues, norms, practices, identities, institutions, technologies, and evolved psychological mechanisms that work together to suppress or regulate self-interest and make cooperative societies possible. So morals give our actions meaning. They give them purpose. They help us build this superorganism society. They help us adhere to groups. And in a Darwinian sense, the groups with the strongest adherence and cohesion, they won. And they still do, if you think of football or other sports teams. But while morality binds us together, which is a good thing, it also blinds us to people who do not share our beliefs or who do not live up to our moral needs. So morality makes us kinder to people who share our beliefs, who are just like us, because we love people who are just like us. And it makes us that little bit more hostile against who we perceive as the others. My Trumpian friends. So the very thing that can help a society thrive, it has also the potential to destroy it. And I find that proof is the growing division and animosity that we just experience globally. So when we look at these issues, racism, misogyny, we usually look at them in individualistic terms. We say, you are prejudiced, or he's or she's prejudiced, she's biased, he's intolerant, etc. And this can be useful, but it leaves us stuck at an individual level. As we come to believe that it's just individuals, deviant individuals, even though there might be quite a few of them. But it's an individual problem. And I feel that instead, if we really want change, we should look at the what, why, and who of systemic racism and of misogyny. We must look at emotions, at images, at narratives, ideologies. We must really question the stories that we tell each other and that we live by, and that are the very foundation of our society. And I suggest that racism and misogyny, they are a group thing. They are a team sport. It doesn't bring you much benefit to be a racist on your own, to be misogynist on your own. And so when you put into Google domestic violence and you Google for images, over 3 Google pages, you will get this image, this or similar. And I would suggest, to just think about what this image does. What does it tell us? What does it make us feel? What's the message in this image? Yeah, I'm open for your suggestions here. There's a second image. It's like a pity I didn't put them. This was a campaign by HSBC Bank in the UK, and it was praised. It was praised by experts as well. The puppet on the string is about financial abuse. When an abuser controls your finances, they control you. So these 2 pictures, what do they tell us?
Well, for me, they tell me that women are weaker, men are stronger.
Yeah. It's confirming a narrative, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
The very narrative that we want to end,
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And I wrote a book about my own experiences with domestic violence, but it's one third about my own experiences and 2/3 about global research. So, and it was republished by a German ministry, and they wanted to put on the cover a broken puppet face, of a porcelain doll, the broken face of a porcelain doll. And I said, under no circumstances whatsoever, just over my dead body, And so the second choice they came up with was something similar to this, and I couldn't, have a say then anymore. Yeah, but it annoyed me to hell and back. Yeah.
There are two people raising their hands. First Pila and then Beverly. Please go on.
Hello, I just wanted to comment. Very good presentation so far. For me, we have, because I'm working in Women's Support Service, both of these pictures and most of public awareness pictures show victim/survivor, never the body or frame or whatever perpetrator. So we are hiding perpetrators. We are showing victims.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's excellent observation. Thank you so much. Yeah. And I feel it's also, the woman is waiting for us to rescue her, right? She needs to be rescued. She wants to be rescued. She really needs us. And there is that image, confirmed again of the needy woman. And what if you don't fit this picture of a victim? Or the puppet on the string. So we know that autonomy, for example, Morcelli has shown that, and funny thing, he was researching actually criminal networks, and he found that women in domestic violence situations, what they need is a functioning network to regain their autonomy, because autonomy is the most important thing. It's the first thing that gets taken away from you as a victim. And it's the most important thing the women reported for them to regain, so they could leave this relationship.
Beverly still wanted to mention something, and also Margie in the chat that I think for the first picture that domestic violence is not only physical, it's psychological, coercive, economic, emotional, etc., and needs reframing. But please, Beverly, go on.
I think my comment was just about the stereotypical image. And if the images are all of young white women, it means that we as a society, even those who protect people in this regard, are likely to only imagine white young women as the victims. It means that we don't see Black and minoritized, LGBTIQ community members, older victims, disabled victims, male victims. And I think the stereotypes for me, they feed into the narrative of this type of person, victim, as we like to call them, is as Angie suggests, weak. And I don't know, it's problematic really on a number of levels. And yet, conversely, we want to get the message out strongly that this is so harmful. So all sorts of views to images, I guess, we might all have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Beverly. Yeah, so, back to morality, where does it actually come from? Where do we find our morals, So moral psychologists, they suggest that morality is both. It's innate, and innate means it's a set of evolved intuitions, and it is learned. We learn to apply these intuitions within the culture that we live in. And innate, again, it doesn't mean hardwired. It means pre-wired. It means flexible and subject to change. So if we want to look at it, what morals are is like nature provides us with a first draft. If you have a book, there's a first draft. The pages are not blank. There's something written on it, but very rudimentary. And then you add your own experiences to this book and make it your own book of life. So Jonathan Haidt, he suggests that we are all born to be righteous, but we have to learn what exactly that means, how we exactly should behave to achieve this righteousness. In moral intuitions, we all like to see and present ourselves as rational individuals. We are rational human beings. So if we believe in something, we are convinced, and we try to convince others that we have good reason for our beliefs. But studies suggest that reason, and this is reason as the tiny rider in the picture here, they often, more often than not, they serve our intuitive moral beliefs, something that you feel like in a split second. It's a gut feeling. So your gut feeling comes first, your reasoning comes later. For example, we only need 1/10 of a second to judge a person. And then we reason and rationalize to confirm this split-second impression. This is what we do actually most of the time, rather than changing our impression if we have new information. Sad, I find. So it's like when you see somebody for the first time, or you have a moral intuition, that means that this elephant, it starts to lean into a certain direction. And now the rational rider can steer him away from it as they perceive new information, away from this direction that the elephant is already leaning in. But sadly, the rider often eggs the elephant on to carry on into this intuitively chosen direction. It's like our inner press secretary. It's the job of the inner press secretary to sell thoughts, feelings, or decisions, to make them look reasonable. So we ask ourselves, what is the function of moral reasoning actually? Was moral reasoning shaped and crafted to help us find the truth, so we can find the right way to behave and condemn and punish others who don't behave in the right way? Or, hang on, I'm not there yet. Or was it shaped and crafted to help us pursue a socially strategic goal, strategic goals, pardon me. So to guard our reputation, to make us convincing to others, to make us an agreeable person. You're probably familiar with this. This is the Miller-Lyer illusion. And one scientist, he linked political judgment to cognitive perception. Political judgment is seen as the higher version of perception, and cognitive perception is the lower perception. And he linked both. So, when I talk about data and facts and numbers, when you throw them at people, I want to believe that, but I want to believe that anyway, what I believe. So even after you have measured the two lines in the Miller-Lyer illusion, we still find it hard to believe that they are the same length. Our intuition tells us the top line is longer, and this tops our rational that they are actually the same length. So he followed that up. Howard Margolis was this. He followed this up with other tests, like the Wason 4 card task. And you have to turn cards around in a rational way. You know? And he found that participants often made irrational choices. They were just matching a simple-minded pattern. But later they reasoned the hell out of their choices. And now when you can imagine, you know, that our moral intuition, this thing that this gut feeling that you have, and yet you start to make look good later by explaining it, you know, if then this is fueled by misinformation, it becomes ever so much worse. Yeah. So these moral beliefs, these moral intuitions that we have, you know, these narratives that we live by, they have been cut into stone. And can you think of examples how gut feelings have been rationalized into theories, into rules and laws? Do you have any suggestions? So just one here. For example, attachment theory. Yes, is still taught in higher education today. And this is about human infants that they need an attachment, and this is often the mother as a primary attachment figure, and that they need this to develop, you know, for their development later in life. And Bowlby said, it is fortunate for their survival that babies are so designed by nature that they beguile and enslave mothers. And I wonder if his theory enslaves mothers too. You know? He said himself that by contrast, little will be said of the father-child relation. His value as the economic and emotional support of the mother will be assumed. So this is a view or a moral belief that seems to be unshakable. You know, that mothers, it has to be the mother that the child has this attachment with. It's funny, like Conrad Lawrence told us, you know, that with little geese, you can put a football there, and when they come first out of the shell, they will follow the football. It's probably not comparable.
Yeah, Jan is raising his hand. Please go on.
Yeah, thank you. I was just thinking about the parental alienation theory or syndrome.
Yeah.
Which we are confronted at the courts still, and we kind of have to argue against it, and it's quite disgusting. Yeah.
Yeah, and it has been debunked, you know, such a long time ago, and it's still being used, right? Because it fits the narrative, it fits the moral belief.
Yes, and if you have a young judge, then it's very hard for the young judge to argue against like 60 years old experienced lawyer, and that's quite disgusting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. I don't know if you can hear the little dog bark there. I hope you can't. And there's a big dog barking now. So they're downstairs.
Sorry to jump in, just technical. We have 20 minutes left, all in all,
thank you.
workshop.
Yeah, and another way, you know, this has been cut into stone, as like in Australian law. This one of the oldest and most persistent rape myths is that genuine victims complain immediately, loudly, and officially. And this has implications to legal practice to this day. The Jury Direction Act in Victorian law, this asks for judges, you know, to instruct the jurors if there was a delay in reporting, that they have to take that in and figure it in, you know, that the victim or the alleged victim might be not credible. And in the US, there was Title IX. This was designed under Obama, under the Obama administration. It was supposed to protect students, especially female students, from harassment and rape on campus. And it was implemented to make it easier for them to report. But the Trump administrations, they revoked this. They feared that it went too far, that it would enable false accusations, which we know are minuscule. And so they rescinded the Obama regulations, and they claimed that this would guarantee an impartial and more fair process. So now a woman must bring clear and convincing evidence for her claim that she has been raped or sexually assaulted or harassed. And again, we know from lie detector studies that this belief can lead to victims behaving in ways that we then perceive indicated of lying. So next to this making it next to impossible, when you put it together with police already disbelieving women, how do you bring a clear and convincing evidence? Then, I ask myself, meritocracy. This is where we believe that everybody gets what they deserve, according to their skills. They get power or money based on, you get power, money based on your ability. You're rewarded, promoted, granted opportunities based on your achievements, rather than on your social background, your family connections. And so this is one picture of fairness that we have. I'd argue it's a very conservative picture of fairness. The idea that those who demonstrate the highest levels of competence and performance should rise to top positions. Because do we have all the same, circumstances? Do we come all from the same circumstances? Do we all have the same abilities, or to develop our skills and talents? We can even reason violence. Yeah. We promote it and we condone it often enough in the name of righteousness. For example, violence is a powerful component in police personality. At times we even demand police to use force and violence. There was a documentary recently about, they call them Klimakleber in Germany. They are climate protesters, mostly young people who glue themselves to the concrete. And there were bystanders asked what they think, what the police should do about them or do with them. And there was a number of bystanders. One person said, "Oh, I wouldn't even dare to say this aloud in front of a camera now, what I think that they should be doing with them." So we are fairly okay with violence as long as it hits the right people. And in our society, violence is preserved and legitimated for the highest in rank usually. It's the state. It's the state that is allowed to kill people in some countries. Incredibly so. A funny fact, this is a rule that pertains to common society as much as to criminal society. Only the highest in rank are allowed to use violence. And yet, in the police force, we find that the most richest and forceful officers are often the ones that are lowest in rank. I wonder if there are possible equivalents to domestic violence, if you can find similarities there, how this reflects there. I have a few pictures here. You know, this is the German
Have
minister.
asked in
Yeah,
the chat that or access to opportunities.
yeah. Sorry, I didn't understand. What did it say in the chat?
Have asked is or access to opportunities.
This is in
that was just to your previous discussion when you were just saying in terms of people accessing different or not having the opportunity. I would just say as part of not having opportunities as well that restricts people's viewpoints or access to the different things in society. That was just an added point, sorry.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. Yeah, so, you know, this is, I put this picture here. This is the Minister for Finance in Germany. Lindner is his name, and he proposed new measures against organized crime. He was going to rescue the Germans from organized crime, and he proposed these measures, which were quite fluffy, you know. There was not really substance to them. He didn't really describe what organized crime is, what organized crime he was going against, or what these new measures in detail were, you know, or what the new organization that he established there, that what they were going to do about it, you know. And he posed with these high-tech guys in the ministerial garden. Yeah, and I found this quite astounding, because first of all, I thought of domestic violence abusers who often, you know, create an imaginary enemy in order to install themselves as saviors. You know, and it's a discussion amongst criminologists that organized crime, you know, what is this? What are we talking about? You know, it's never really said. It's this looming danger, you know, that we need to be safe from. And yeah, many agree that it's a creation of risk in order to be able to install yourself as the government here, as the savior. And I found the analogy to domestic violence abusers, you know, quite disturbing in a way. You know? It made me smile, but yeah, it's not really funny. So if you condone this violence, you know, if you condone it, if you're okay with it, if you think it's a little bit okay, that might have to do with your moral foundations again. And there's 6 of these that hate, again, you know, that he defines. And in our Western society, we usually think about morality, like we had this mentioned here a few times now, in terms of harming, you know, of care, harm. That's the first foundation there. Caring for people or harming for people, that we should refrain from harming people, or oppression or cheating others. So in our Western society, moral foundations, they are largely limited to the ethics of autonomy, where the moral spectrum is much broader in most other societies. And it is much broader within religious and conservative moral matrices. For example, you know, other societies include ethics of community, which you have here, loyalty, and can you see the cursor? No, can you? Loyalty and betrayal is third here. This evolved to enable us to form and maintain coalitions. And again, the group, that as a group, we are stronger. As a cohesive group, we can survive. So, hang on, I'm caught here now. So this is, you know, in other societies that look more at communal ethics and ethics, you know, of sanctity, which is the second last here, they initially evolved, sanctity, something that we hold sacred, something that we hold dear, that we find is untouchable. And that initially evolved to protect us from pathogens and parasites, but now it enables us, to put a value on a certain thing that we feel this is sacred to me. I can say this phone is sacred to me, and if we all agree on one thing that is sacred, the Mother Mary, for example, better example than the phone, then we can create a group that has the same intentions and is cohesive. These same intentions, the same thing that we hold dear, binds us together again. Where atheists often argue, and I am an atheist, where atheists will often argue, that religion is a fault, another fault in our stars, it serves nothing. Moral psychologists argue that it actually does serve something, and anthropologists argue the same thing. It serves cohesion in groups. It binds us together. We hold the same things dear. And this, not surprisingly, is held in high value in religious groups and in conservative groups.
I'm really sorry to jump in again. We have 7 minutes left. Maybe about change and accountability would be nice, and a few minutes for questions and answers.
So innately, when you remember, this is pre-wired advance in advance of experience. We all have these 6 foundations. We have all evolved, you have all developed these 6 foundations, but it is your genes, your special set of genes, and your special experience in life that will trigger, that serve to trigger one foundation more or one foundation less than the other. For example, if you are a liberal, or if you place more value on care and harm, and fairness and cheating, usually this classifies the liberal thinking people, whereas conservative people, they would place more value on loyalty, being in a group. And if they think about fairness, they think about fairness too, but in a different kind of way. Like we as liberals, I don't even know if we are all liberals, so pardon me. So I, as a liberal thinking person, would think of fairness in regards of equality, whereas a more conservative thinking person would still place a lot of value on fairness, but fairness for them looks completely different. It means, like, I work hard, I pay taxes, don't you give my taxes to the welfare mummies that they would perceive as cheating and unfair. So it's important, to see where we come from, to understand the other thinkers. We often use psychology to explain away conservatism. They were raised by overly strict parents, they're afraid of change, they are suffering from existential fears, and therefore they cling to a black and white worldview. And if you do the similar thing, we explain away violence, or why women fall victim to it. And it makes it unnecessary for us to take other people's, here, for example, conservative views serious. And it makes it unnecessary for us to look at our own moral and cultural beliefs and how they may contribute to men's violence and keep women trapped in it. So what if instead we start by looking at these moral foundations to understand the moral matrices that we are all ensnared in? To understand, where the others are coming from. And again, this is not about relativism. this is just about, and it's been argued that conservatives have a better ability to understand liberals because they already share this fairness foundation, but they use more moral foundations. I can hear, they use all 5 of them or all 6 of them, where liberal thinking people focus on autonomy, on individualism, care, harm, fairness, cheating. And knowing this, it makes it perceivable or why people vote right, why they vote right-wing for right-wing parties. Because they offer, this loyalty. Our country, this is our country. We are loyal to our people. We don't let the others in. We obey authority. And authority is not necessarily a bad thing. Authority only becomes a bad thing when you assign authority, for example, to a gender. Because you're male, you have authority. When you listen to Franz de Waal, who studied primates, the alpha male, this often misused term, the alpha male isn't the strongest, necessarily the strongest, the most bullish. No, he has to have a certain role in that society. He has to offer something. He has to be able to bring something to the table. Authority has to be earned. It's not like something that you get presented with because you are male. And if we link all this back to accountability, which I would really like to do before we have to finish here. Yeah. So if you think of us again, that we are all intuitive politicians, and that we are all eager to present an agreeable personality. Yeah. There were studies where people were asked to declare someone guilty or innocent. And it was found that they only reflected on their decision, when they were told they would have to justify their decision to an audience. If they were left to their own devices, they made the usual errors, they showed laziness, they relied on gut feelings. You might think, now that's good news, right? If we just have to, if the only thing that it needs is that we are being held accountable to others, but it's not quite that easy. Because the subjects in the study, they showed 2 very different kinds of careful reasoning. The first was exploratory thought, and this is an even-handed consideration of alternative points of view, looking at it from different angles, or confirmative thought, where you just confirm what you did. And accountability for scientists, they say that accountability increases exploratory thought, where you really think about what you do and you really, you look at it from different angles, even the ones that you find uncomfortable. That only happens when 3 conditions apply. The first is that decision makers learn before forming an opinion that they will be held accountable to an audience. And the second is that they don't know what the audience are thinking. They don't know what the audience's view is. And the third is that they believe that the audience is actually well informed, that they know what they're talking about, and that they're interested in accuracy. And only if all these 3 conditions apply, then we do our dangest to figure out the truth. Because we think this is what the audience wants to hear. The rest of the time, which Tedlock suggests is most of the time, the pressure that we are being held accountable, it only increases our confirmative thought. It only, brings our inner press secretary in and who will explain the inexplicable and make ourselves good look to the outside. I was thinking, perpetrator programs, can we actually achieve accountability under these conditions? Number 2, for example, it does not apply, does it? The men that come into the programs, they know what we are thinking. They know what we expect of them. So they can confirm us. And number 3 often doesn't apply either.
I'm really, really sorry to jump in. It was really interesting, and thank you all for your time. Unfortunately, our time is over.
Yeah.
But I think it was really useful and informative and a lot of food for thoughts. Please, those who want to join to the plenary session, Dimitra sent in the comment chat the next Zoom links. And also, if you would, maybe you'd appreciate your feedback on this workshop. It's on the first message of Dimitra. You can access the Google form, and the second message includes the Zoom link for the next plenary session. So please, we welcome you, and please join. And thank you all for coming, and thank you a lot, Anja, for this very, very interesting workshop. And hopefully next time we can
thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for joining me. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for your contributions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vielen Dank.
Ja, danke schön.
Thank you. Bye bye.